You know, being on the internet for as long as I have, you think I'd be less surprised by all of the weird fiction that's out there. I spent a good chunk of my college years reading fan fiction. I've been exposed to a lot of weird shit. And I'm also aware of all of the weird niche romance novels that are out there. And yet, there I was, doing my daily doom scrolls on Twitter, when I came across this. It was then that I knew what I would be doing for the next few days. So, this is Runaway Heart by Claire Richmond. And I want to make something nice and sparkling clear. Yes, this is real. This is a real book published unironically by a major publisher. Romance novel, Disney World. Romance novel, Disney World. It sounds like a parody, doesn't it? The moment I learned about this, I knew I had to check it out. Getting a hold of the book proved to be an absolute nightmare.
It's been out of print for a long time and no used booksellers had them in stock. I checked all of the usual ones I go to and turned up empty. Luckily, it turns out it's been archived on the Internet Archive's open library, preserved forever like any piece of classic literature should. With hopes renewed, I decided to sit down and read the book. Full disclosure, I'm not really into romance novels. My jam is classic lit and graphic novels and manga and books about Disney rides.
So if it ever sounds like I'm being unfair or I'm complaining about genre conventions, I apologize. I know romance novels can get a lot of shit because people like hating on stuff that women like. My goal, I do not want to make anyone feel bad for liking romance novels. This is hopefully just going to be a lighthearted little jab at this piece of literature.
Alright, so from what I've gathered, this book is a part of the Harlequin American Romance, a series from Harlequin, one of the leading romance publishers. According to their website, Harlequin American romance stories are heartwarming contemporary tales of everyday women finding love, becoming part of a family or community, or maybe starting a family of our own. So, yeah, that's the kind of story we're going to be dealing with. The author, Claire Richmond, seems to have written a few books in this series. Bride's Inn, Hawaiian Heat, Pirate's Legacy, and, yes, Runaway Heart. According to a blurb in the front of the book, Richmond wrote nonfiction, mysteries, and poetry on top of her romances. When she's not at her typewriter, she can be found swimming and snorkeling, reading, taking photographs, or cutting a figure eight on the ice. She's delighted to be writing stories about strong women who not only fall in love, but also cope with the problems of modern life.
A nice story. Too bad none of it's real, because Claire Richmond does not exist.
In actuality, she is the pen name of Louise Titchener and Carolyn Males. Both of them are from the East Coast, and both have active writing careers. I couldn't find any background or information about the creation of the book aside from that.
I have no idea if either of these women have any kind of online presence. If they do, please don't antagonize them because of this video. Don't be jerks. And on the off chance you guys happen to be watching this, first of all, hello. Please don't take anything I say in this video personally. I am not trying to belittle your skills as a writer. I just want to keep this as lighthearted and friendly as possible. I don't claim to be a serious critic. I'm just an idiot talking into a camera. We're all having fun here. So, will Runaway Heart live up to its ridiculous premise? Let's find out.
The basic story is as follows. Barbara Emerson is an ordinary woman with a daughter named Jackie. Until one day, when her daughter went missing without a trace. Tensions had grown between them following her husband's death. They had a big fight, and she just left one day without a word. Police are unable to do much, so she hired a private investigator named Dan McGuinn to solve the case. And sparks immediately fly between the two.
Will they be able to find her missing daughter? And will their love blossom into something more? Spoiler alert, yes and yes. Your average romance isn't really concerned itself with subverting your expectations. They pretty much just give you what you want. And even though I have no experience with romance novels, I am fairly certain I have read a million fanfics like this. The pacing of this book is kind of weird. The opening chapters are about Barbara's job as a counselor at a college, and we see her continually helping out a student and helping him get a job. You think it's gonna go somewhere with how much it gets brought up, but it gets dropped halfway through. And Jackie's got a boyfriend, and he's super punk and alternative, and he's into the rock music. And everyone thinks he's involved, but he's not. And then he and Jackie break up off screen, so that kind of went nowhere.
And the main conflict with Jackie, you know, the whole reason this book is happening in the first place, it's resolved halfway through. They find her, she reconciles with her mother, and they go back home. That's like the only bit of tension that existed, and they just drop it in the second act. There's still 100 pages of story left afterwards. The rest is just focused on resolving the romantic tension between Dan and Barb, which, alright, might not be too bad if it's handled well. So, how is it handled?
Fun fact about me, I spent all of my high school years in Tumblr shipping fandoms. And to this day, I am incredibly susceptible to shipping. Like, you show me two characters in a room, that they exist in the same room, but they don't interact with each other, and I'm gonna say they're a couple. I wanted to give you that bit of context, because I don't really like Dan and Barb's romance very much. Not for like any moral reasons, I know that's really popular on the internet. There's nothing like inherently unhealthy or egregiously unhealthy about their relationship. I just don't care about them.
I had trouble putting my finger on why, but I think it's because they aren't really balanced with character development. Dan gets a really extensive backstory. He ran away from home in the 60s to escape his overbearing father. Then he was in the military for years. Then he studied criminology, became a cop, and had a really traumatizing event happen to him. Now he's a private detective that helps people how he can. Oh, and he's got daddy issues because why the hell not? Meanwhile, Barb is a college counselor whose parents and husband are dead. That's it. To be fair, she does get a little bit of depth. She was driving in the accident that killed her husband, and she feels some culpability for it all. But aside from that, she's pretty much a blank slate. She doesn't even have any quirky flaws that we see in these kind of romance protagonists. Like, she's not clumsy, she doesn't snort when she laughs, or any of those other kind of quirky little problems. She's just there.
I think some of it might be a self-insert thing. I mean, Dan's good looking, he can protect you, he's strong, but he can also cook, and he's really smart, and he's really emotionally intelligent. But he's also got that tragic backstory, and you can heal him with your love.
Now you might think that this guy only exists in your mind. But guess what? You're right.
Anyways, making Barb kind of a blank slate protagonist, it allows readers to kind of easily insert themselves into that role. Give her too much backstory or make her too flawed, and readers can't relate to her anymore. And I haven't even mentioned the spicy scenes. I will not be analyzing them because I like being monetized, but trust me, this book has them. The most I'm going to say about them is that they are very tame. So if you're the kind of person who reads romance novels for these kind of scenes, you can skip this. Once they find Jackie, the rest of the book is a bore. There's no real tension because you know what's gonna happen. They're gonna get together and they're gonna have their happily ever after. The worst that happens is just Barb being worried about the relationship going on too fast. But that's gone and forgotten within a few chapters. And this is the thing that kills me. Jackie, who ran away from home because she couldn't handle the grief after her father died, is totally cool with Dan and Barb dating. She has no objections to it. She doesn't even blink when she says it's okay with it. You're telling me the same person that ran away from home because she was grieving over her dad would be cool with her mom just suddenly dating a guy?
I'm not saying that there isn't a time and place for easygoing romances with no drama, but when that romance is all that your plot is built around, it can make things kind of dull. The only thing of note in the back half is a random dinner scene. Jackie said that she and her friends were going to see the new Stephen King movie that weekend, which got me wondering which movie they were going to see. So I did some digging into the movies that came out in 1986, the year this was published, and came to the conclusion that the film in question was likely Maximum Overdrive, the one about evil trucks. But this book only came out in 1986, and novel writing takes time. So I looked back on the year before, and there were actually 2 Stephen King movies that came out that year. Cat's Eye and Silver Bullet. None of that had anything to do with anything, but that measly bit of research was more fulfilling and entertaining than the back half of Runaway Heart. It's just kinda bland and boring. I found myself skimming pages as we got closer to the end.
You might be wondering what any of this had to do with Disney. Well, Dan theorizes that Jackie ended up in one of 3 places: New York, Los Angeles, and Orlando. Yeah, apparently Orlando was a big mecca for runaways in the 80s. I don't know how accurate that is. Feel free to debate it in the comments. But it turns out to be right. Jackie did really go to Orlando. So they go to a runaway house and they get a lead that she might have gone to Disney World. So they go there and scope out the place.
And in case you're wondering, it takes us over 100 pages to get there. Okay, so this book came out in 1986. Where was Walt Disney World during this time? Well, Epcot had just opened, finally expanding the resort with a second gate. Hollywood Studios was right on the horizon. We were seeing a lot more thrilling and exciting attractions. We had gotten both Space Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain Railroad within the span of a few years. Soon we were going to be seeing non-Disney properties appear, like Star Wars and Indiana Jones. So it was a time of great upheaval for the Disney parks. I don't even know why I'm telling you this, it doesn't matter to the book at all. They start off at the Magic Kingdom, and the book is surprisingly detailed with its descriptions. We get all of the lands listed off, they mention every building on Main Street, Dan scopes out Tomorrowland on the People Mover, even shop names are mentioned like Tinkerbell's Toy Box. Then they take the monorail over to Epcot, and all of the beloved attractions get mentioned. Spaceship Earth, Journey into Imagination, Olive World Showcase. They even have dinner inside of the Mexico Pavilion. I will give the authors credit. They did their homework and all of the stuff here is accurate to the parks. To show that, I actually want to share a quick passage from the book. The land was interesting because I had no idea you could grow so many things hydroponically. Lettuce, every kind of vegetable. It made it seem as though no matter how overpopulated we get, we still might be able to eat. It was really the journey into imagination that I liked best. Let me see if I can guess why, he said, popping a French fry into his mouth. I bet you liked conducting your own symphonies. Did you by any chance play a cowboy or a giant in one of those adventure stories? No, I didn't, but I did stop by and watch the Space Adventure. Barbara smiled, thinking of a special exhibit where people could stand in front of a screen and follow directions, actually appear in the story that was being projected in back of them. The kids really seemed to be enjoying it. It's not only kids who like it, Dan informed her with a straight face.
I looked through the book, I couldn't find any copyright acknowledgements from Disney, so that takes away the theory that this is just covert marketing. I think the authors just really liked Disney.
Now, how is the setting used in the story? Well, they first see Jackie on a double-decker bus at Epcot. They used to have those, but they were retired a long time ago. And the next day, they split up to explore all of Epcot. Dan goes to World Showcase, Barb goes to Future World. Also, he gives her a handicap pass to skip the lines, which... Look, I know people would look for their kid by any means necessary, but misusing stuff for accessibility is going a little too far in my opinion, and only further stigmatizes disabled people who get accused of faking it. Not to mention that... Content warning, ableism. Skip to this timestamp if you don't want to hear it. The only named disabled character in this book only serves to be a part of Dan's tragic backstory. And Dan straight up describes him using the R word. Which kinda makes the above fact even worse. Anyways, they get back to the Magic Kingdom and end up chasing Jackie into Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, they literally go through the whole ride and Dan ends up getting out of the boat and jumping into the one that she was sitting in. It's probably the most action-packed scene in the entire book. But after that, the Disney World scenes end. They take up only a few chapters and yet they put them on the cover.
But I guess that was Runaway Heart. So guys, what did we learn today? Never judge a book by its cover.
Is it the worst thing ever published? No, it isn't. Not by a long shot. I kinda wish it was, because then it would have been at least a little interesting. This book just rolled off the brain. The one thing that made it somewhat remarkable was the Disney connections. And that's only for the absurdity of the idea.
The content doesn't live up to that absurdity at all. No, it's not that bad, but it's also not that good. But that is, of course, my opinion. I'm sure there will be people out there who will enjoy the low-stakes romance and just want something comfy to read. And if that's your jam, maybe you'll find something in it that I couldn't.
If your fantasy is falling in love with a grizzled detective and healing him with your love, that's fine. Don't let anyone try to make you feel bad for the kind of books you enjoy. So, even if Runaway Heart wasn't for me, it might be for you. So, if you can find the book, check it out and decide for yourself.
This video would not have been possible without the Internet Archive. There's so much history preserved on that website, stuff we wouldn't have gotten to see otherwise. Had this book not been on there, it might have just been lost forever. So, if you have the means, please consider donating to them. They do a lot of great work.
But that concludes the video. Now I'll pass the question on to you. What do you make of this? Have you read or do you plan on reading Runaway Heart? Do you know about any other weird Disney things out there that might make for good videos? Whatever your thoughts, let me know down in the comments. Once again, all of the Internet Archive's information will be in the description. Also, if you'd like to help support the show, please consider checking out my Patreon or Ko-fi page. If you can't, then be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more of my stuff.
But that's all the time I've got for today. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.